Well, welcome everybody. This is Jennifer Flax. I'm going to read your bio that you sent Daniela and I. We thought it was really funny. You seem like just a really fun person to work with. So um, you can call me tenacious, though I prefer Jen. As the founder of Flax Studio, I bring creativity, drive, and focus to my clients and their work. I'm passionate about graphic design and using it to tell stories that illuminate what my clients do and how it benefits their audience. I work with people as a creative partner, delivering solutions that are both inspired and practical. In short, I provide a rare blend of right and left brain thinking to build a brand. For me, lazy neurons never make the cut. I'm a lifelong learner and my boundless curiosity has led me to diverse worlds, including dance, acting, sports, and finance. In fact, my interests in sports resulted in work for brands like the National Football League. I'm equally fervent about philanthropy and have steered design efforts for several nonprofits, especially those focused on youth empowerment and women's advocacy. To keep those neurons firing, I also work as a community leader with AIGA, the largest design association in the country. And in my spare time, please find me some, by the way. Yeah, exactly. You're learning Spanish. So yeah, that's amazing. So be sure to say hola to you. So hola, Jennifer.
What's up?
I'm Miranda Richardson, the director here at Stevens, the Copenhagen Center here at Stevens, and we're just really happy to have you with us. I have a design class downstairs that are eagerly awaiting your presentation. So without further ado, Jennifer Flax, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll jump in. Let me try to share my screen. Oh wait, it looks like maybe it's disabled for multiple.
Let's see here. Let's see.
It wouldn't be a Zoom call without some technical difficulties.
Exactly. That should work now. How about on your side?
Yep.
Okay.
Just get to. Okay. And can you guys see my full screen, the first slide? Okay, great. Okay, so this is me. If you guys find me on LinkedIn, this will be the picture you see. You found the right person. My name is Jen Flax. I run a design studio. We have been through some name iterations, but we are currently Flax Studio. I started this back in 2011. And so I thought today, just before we get started on the conversation, I would just show a little bit, a few examples of my work. You can get a sense of my style and some of the things that I've done. These are all designs that I've done specifically. So one of the areas that I really love focusing on, you can tell from the bio, I have a pretty good balance of right brain, left brain, the finance and the creative. And so infographics is a fun place for me to be, where I'm looking at data, I'm looking at statistics and turning that into something visual, trying to tell a story in that way. So this was one of my favorites. We actually work for a vehicle logistics company. And they were trying to take some of their complex things. People don't know much about diesel exhaust fluid. And so how do we talk about that in a way that's just not a bulleted list or definitions? And so we took this information about that they wanted their users to know about it, made it into a really fun infographic. We used sort of that road element to tie it into the transportation space. And we actually submitted this. I don't do a lot of awards. It's an interesting thing that you learn as you get older. It's really expensive. So those places that have all those awards, they probably spent a lot of money just to even submit their work for them. This one is a free contest. So in Arizona, they have the best of every year. We submitted it in 2021 and we got first place on this one. So definitely really proud of what came out of the work that we did for this one. We also do a lot of them for reports, trying to break up a lot of text heavy, multi-page layouts. And so this was one that we did to break up a lot of the pages within a report. Again, trying to add in a lot of pops of color. You'll see a lot of white space, really clean, design some interesting font combinations and everything. And then this was a standalone infographic we did for another client about how ultra high net worth individuals, who they are and how they invest. And so basically taking in some data that they had collected and making it into a visual that they could share. So these are the most fun for me. We do everything from print to digital. This is an example of a really cool project I like to talk about because it sort of married some past work that I'd done. As the bio said, I worked with the NFL and I got to work on a player trading card project with Topps, the trading card company. This was actually a financial company. They were getting ready to go back. This was their first in-person event post-pandemic. It's a managing director retreat. It was going to be in Arizona. And they wanted a fun way to have folks network with each other, something original. So we thought, how cool would it be to have a rookie card for all the managing directors? Since this was the first year, this would be their rookie card. And we created this template and we built out cards for all of the participants and they gamified it. People could go around and trade cards with folks, talk to folks, and then at the end there were prizes for different categories within the game. And then obviously if they go and have an event in another state, we can rebrand this medallion based on the environment that the next conference is in, and we'll have your veteran cards, you'll be able to collect your own trading cards. So that was a fun little tie-in from the sports world that we did for a very corporate client. Very heavy project. Obviously, we could template out some of the design, but we had to come in and update all of these different things for every individual. So that was a really fun, but very big project that we did. Lots of reports. We do a lot of white papers. And so again, trying to figure out how to make things visual, how to keep it nice and clean and easy to read, but then add in graphics or infographics to break up the content. So this was another example of that. And then a third example for a report that we did where for me, it's all about breaking up pages and pages of text, trying to figure out, even with graphs, how do we make this more interesting? So we're tying it into, again, that road element when we're looking at the graphs for defining attitudes near the bottom, or adding in some background to be able to show something that's related to the concept the graph is trying to explain. Even breaking up quotes instead of just having lines of text that are quotes, creating sort of a grid or something like that to break it all up. And then a couple of other designs, and these are just more illustrative. Funny enough, today is actually Arizona Gives Day. It's the state version of Giving Tuesday. And so this was a STEM-based youth empowerment organization in Tucson. And we did a pro bono project for them for Arizona Gives Day in 2021. Do some fun marketing for them with their background and their colors. And then this was another neat project. I actually did a custom numbering. You call it typeface, but it's for numbers. So I don't really know if there's a name for that. But we created these custom numbers and then we used them throughout the report when we had numbered list, or here is an example as a graphic that we put together based on the numbers that we had created. And that's it. I just wanted to give a sense of a little bit of my style and my work, and I'm happy to talk more about any of the projects as we go along or pull them back up if we need to.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. It's always great to see visuals and how the creative process works in that way. So thank you for sharing. Do you want to tell us a little bit, maybe starting off with just your time here at Stevens, and then we have some questions that we sort of put together that we discussed before, but I'd just be really curious to know, since we have a lot of Stevens students and alumni tuning in right now, if you just share a little bit about what you studied at Stevens and your time here.
Yeah, sure. I was a transfer student at Stevens. I had actually finished 3 years of college at a state university. I was an athlete. I had a semester till I graduated and decided at the last minute what I had been learning just wasn't enough for me. I had a mentor who had gone to Stevens and said, you know, you'll love it, come meet everybody. So much to my parents' chagrin, semester away from graduation, as a theater major, no less, I transferred to Stevens. I joined the performing arts program. It was a three-year, all-year-round program. Luckily, I got to come into the second year. I at least got to skip 1 year of the program, so I wasn't, you know, an 8-year theater graduate. Came in and did theater, studied with the dance department, had a minor in music and a minor in French. Again, just tried to stay a little more well-rounded. Got to play a little bit of sports. It was pretty casual back then, but really dipped my toe into a lot of different things. Was part of SGA. Just getting involved wherever I could.
Yeah. It's such a tight-knit community here at Stevens, so I'm always interested to know sort of how your experience was and what you were involved in. A lot of times design, I can imagine it's not a straight, you know, course, right? And so this particular workshop's title is From Unconventional Beginnings to Design Success. Can you talk a little bit about the workshop's title and why you felt like it was appropriate to sort of talk about sort of unconventional beginnings?
Yeah, it's a challenge, especially professionally in the design space. You hear a lot of really great designers, and they all went to art design school or art school, right? And so you get a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. I did not obviously go to art school. I was a theater major who became an investment banker, and then just was really missing that creative output and taught myself how to code. I initially thought I was going to be building websites, so I taught myself HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and then all of the Adobe Creative Suite. With the intention of finding a job in an agency and learning how to do everything in the agency, which is, you know, what they tell you, start at an agency and learn it. I had every intention of doing that. I did informational interviews. I applied everywhere I could, and I could not get a job at an agency. My former boss at the finance company had left and wanted to start his own business. So he hired me to build his website, and then appreciated what I did. I branded the company and everything. He referred me to other people, and I just started building from there and started working again the entire time thinking, okay, I'm going to join an agency. I'm going to eventually join an agency. And again, I couldn't get there. We went through several rounds of this. I would focus on that, but then all the clients, all the work would start pouring in, and I would, you know, shift focus and then try to veer back, and it never happened. So I've been building this again since 2011. I've had some amazing clients, amazing mentors, amazing business leaders that have given me a lot of advice and helped me learn the things that I assume I would have learned working for an agency, but it was probably a little bit harder. I didn't know the things that I didn't even know I needed to learn until they came up. But so definitely unconventional. I've never met anybody, certainly who was a theater major and went into investment banking, but then from investment banking into graphic design, definitely a little unconventional that way.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes just saying yes to opportunities and sort of following your nose and having a champion, I think, give you opportunities is really important. So that brings me to my next question, which is, who was the most influential person to sort of champion you in your career, or provide support to you reaching the goals that you might have had? Did you share your goals with people? And kind of when we say yes to opportunities, the world opens up. And we have to be open to making those supportive endeavors. And so can you talk a little bit about if there was an influential person to really champion you in that?
Yeah, I think it's funny because nowadays we take it for granted. Mentorship and that concept is just part of the lexicon. Everybody understands it and knows it, and you know, tries to find a mentor. Back then, I'm sure it was defined, but no one was talking about it in that way. And And that's where Stevens was just incredibly influential in the trajectory of my life and my career. I came to Stevens. I worked with, there was a woman who was here as a guest artist, who just kind of took me under her wing, helped me believe in myself a little more, definitely championed me. And then she, so lucky for me, became a faculty member the following year. And she even opened some doors for me that had been closed, things that had not been a part of, I tried to get into, but weren't part of the opportunities that they were giving to theater majors back then. She opened up those doors. She just saw the potential not only for me, but also for the programs to have me in them, right? And that really understanding that there are women out there that will do that, understanding the benefit of it, the importance of it, and seeing it in practice made me understand that that was something to continue to look for as I moved out into the world. And so at every job that I then took, even in finance, it was finding that person that would say yes to me, that would mentor me, that would give me advice, but then also would champion me when I wasn't in the room. And again, I think those are concepts that we all know about it. We hear about it now. It's pretty understandable, but that wasn't something that we talked about or necessarily understood, I think, back then. So Stevens really, as a women's college, especially, building that up for other women and knowing that there were strong women out there that were going to help you along your path, that was huge.
That's great. Yeah, I remember having conversations with professors or advisors, and those are sort of the typical people that you reach out to for supports. But it can be sometimes just small connections, saying yes to someone in an opportunity that you might not be, totally familiar with, but then having somebody stand up for you and when you're not in the room. I liked that. That's really great. We all want that, right? What do you think, because we have so many students on this particular, listening to this particular workshop, a lot of them want to know sort of what they need to focus on, or how do you hone in on maybe one specific thing? Because you didn't come from a traditional sense of design, a background in design rather, what did you hone in on, and how did you know that that's where you sort of wanted to follow? As far as path or position. Yeah.
I wish I could, especially for the designers or the creatives, I wish I could tell you there's, one particular thing, like learn this and it's going to be golden. I think for me, so when I was in high school, I had a coach that gave me the nickname Timex, and they're probably, most of the people on this call aren't familiar with this, but their slogan or their tagline back then was, Timex takes a licking and keeps on ticking. And the idea was I was really small in sports. And so I would get knocked down a lot, but I would always get back up and get right back into the game. And I think that's a skill or maybe a mindset that I've carried with me or honed my entire career. Acting, certainly there's so much rejection. You have to be able to brush that off and jump back to the next audition and try for the next role. But even in business and creative, there are going to be clients that leave. There are going to be proposals that you don't get, and you have to just keep trying and keep working. I just ran a panel. I put together a panel for design for sports, and I brought together some friends of mine in the sports industry because it's an area that people would love to break into, but it's hard. It's really fun and exciting, right? Although we did get into a lot of the more negative parts of it as well. There's definitely that too. And so just understanding how to get into those things, and that you sometimes just have to either take initiative, try to do something on your own and get to be seen, or just keep putting out feelers, keep reaching out to people, keep asking for informational interviews until you find that position, that role, that client, whatever it is, to keep going. So I think more than one creative skill, more than one platform that you should learn, it's just having some resilience. I think tenacity, like I said, tenacious in my bio, or grit, that's another term for it. Just having that so that you can keep going, that you're going to find exactly what you're looking for if you can keep brushing yourself off when when that rejection or those things that you think you want or you should have don't come to fruition.
Yeah. You mentioned that, sometimes clients leave, or sometimes you have, you don't see eye to eye, I guess. And with such a small client like the NFL, can you speak a little bit about maybe nerves that you had, or how you kind of show up for yourself and for your team to have such a large client like that?
Again, it's part of it is luck. I ended up in a department that had an incredible leader. He is still a mentor to me. We connect all the time. And that's what made that. I didn't have nerves there because he just made that environment. He was really key about finding out what each individual, what their strengths were, but also what they wanted their strengths to be. So if there was somebody that really wanted to get into public speaking, he would help find the opportunities within our own work. We were working in digital, but how can you find opportunities to give people practice in public speaking? And he would find those and help you cultivate those skills. So for me, there were never nerves working with them. I just had such great people to work with there.
It's great. It's great. I'm going to pause and just tell everybody that if you'd love to ask Jennifer a question, to just put it in the chat, and we'll try and get to it for sure. No, this is great. Downstairs, we have a particular group of students called Creative Inc. And they were really excited to tune in and hear about your design journeys. And we just went on a trip, and they're always seeking, like you mentioned, you tried to be involved in everything. And with Stevens, the culture is that's not just expected, but it's what you want to do. It's why you come to Stevens as the community. But and I do think that as women, it's easier to take risks in an environment that you feel safe. And I just see, our students showing up in such amazing ways. Is there something that was a huge risk to you that you took, a risk that you took that paid off? And then maybe counterpoint to that would just be an example or an opportunity that didn't work out. And hey, sometimes those things are actually beneficial to our path. So biggest
risk that paid off. I mean, I think leaving banking and starting a design career was a huge risk. I luckily had a great support network to be able to do something like that. But I spent a year just learning software. I mean, I have no background, no experience. HTML and CSS this was Web 1.0. So there wasn't a ton of just free resources online. That was huge. And obviously that paid off in spades. I didn't ever really think that I needed the creative outlet. I always thought that would come from acting. I didn't know there were other things that would fill that need for me. And when I moved to Los Angeles and it was much more film-based instead of theater-based, I just wasn't enjoying it at all. And that was a bummer, but to find design as a way to fill that was huge. So that was an amazing risk that has continued to pay in spades. A risk that didn't turn out, it's actually, I'm living through it. I know it's gonna turn out. Right now it feels like it hasn't turned out. So I had a really busy year last year. I took on too much. It's something I think more people are opening up about. As a business owner, again, there were a lot of things I didn't know. So then I was learning, then I was taking things on. I got burnt out. And by the end of last year, I just realized I had to take a break. But I was doing pretty much, I was in every part of the business. And so if I was going to take a break, that meant the business had to take a break. And so I notified my clients at the end of the year. I found them all another designer to work with. I found my employee. I had one full-time employee. I found her a new job before we even closed the doors, and rehomed everybody. And then I took some time off. I kind of had an expectation I had in the back of my mind. There was a full-time position that was a potential opportunity that was would have been amazing. So that kind of helped make that decision a little easier. And then that position didn't come through. So here I'm taking a sabbatical, which is fabulous. But it's like, oh, well, I didn't think I was really going to have to rebuild my business.
Oh, no.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm living through that. I don't know. I think, I don't know for sure what that looks like. I think it's going to be rebuilding the business. There's the potential that, you know, another amazing opportunity comes along. It's certainly either way. I think the win is that the way I had built my business, there was so much room for improvement that now if I get to rebuild, which I already am, I already have people reaching out. I've already gotten new clients that I didn't expect to have, right? But I get to build it back better. Ooh, I don't want to be political.
I've heard that before.
But
Yeah.
that concept, right? I guess
Sure.
the concept applies here that I think I can make things better so that I don't get to a place of burnout. So I get to skirt around your question. It's not going to turn out the way I thought it would turn out, but I still am really optimistic that it's going to be the right thing. The right thing happened. I did the right thing, and it's going to turn into something even better.
Yeah, the nerves sort of fall away when you know that you are just determined to do the next right thing, right? We do have quite a few questions coming through. Someone asks about, and we get this a lot, so we were able to go to St. Louis and meet a design agency there and some folks that were kind enough to show us sort of, you mentioned a design agency. And so this part might not be something that you did, but maybe in a different way. So I'm very curious. This question is, how did you build your portfolio? So when people have a certain trajectory as a design student or graduate, they kind of have this path that says, okay, I have this portfolio and I'm going to show it to this person. So how did you build your portfolio? I'm sure it's pretty diverse at this point. Yeah.
For sure. It was just honestly, it was client work. I would say now, I mean, I would advise people just mock things up, create projects that you think are cool, that are passionate, redesign. One of the VP of creative for the NFL on the panel that I just had said, hey, look at the logos, current logos, and make your own version of them, just to be able to show people that you have ideas, that you're creative. Obviously be careful about, you know, don't put them on a t-shirt and sell them. There's some trademark issues there, but right, you can do all of that and put it in a portfolio just to show people that you have either skills or you have some ideas. I just kept building I kept getting clients and I kept getting work. And so I just started creating, you know, a portfolio from those projects. I wish I could say I was motivated. You know, my spare time, I take out my iPad and I draw, and I'm not motivated in that way. I need a creative brief from a client to be able to build something out that I feel like I want to put in a portfolio.
A
But
little direction, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, it's more helpful for me to have that, and the motivation of that I'm getting paid to do the work.
Yes, for sure. Well, that's great to hear, actually, because that is assignments that we do here at Stevens, which is showcase your creative process, reimagine a company's logo that already exists, and then show your ideas for it and why you chose, you know, kind of sell us on that idea. It's a great exercise. So that makes perfect sense. One of the second questions says, as a lifelong learner, is there something in particular that you are currently working on learning that excites you? I know that Spanish potentially, but anything else?
I wish I could say AI. I'm learning it. I'm not
Oh,
excited about it. I'm sure I'll get there. I think there are some really great use cases for it at this point. Obviously, we're just at the birth of it, so I think there's a lot to explore there. I actually like learning things outside of the things that I do for work every day. I really need to, that's part of this neurons firing. If I'm really focused on one thing for so many hours of the day, I like learning something else. So that was Spanish. learning more about wine or learning. I'm a terrible cook. I can follow it, but I don't enjoy it. So learning more about some cooking techniques is something I'm doing right now. That's just, again, I need to have something break it up just to be a little more fun.
Don't you think that that kind of can add positive aspects to your creative process as well? I mean, it's an
A
exercise.
100%. Yeah. It's when we, our team meetings every Monday, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this, but we had, and this, I didn't create it. It was something I heard another company did, but it was called Share Some Shit. And so what we did is everybody just shared anything that brought them inspiration over the past week. So it could be another designer that you saw on Instagram or Pinterest, or it could be something in an art museum. It could be a book you read, a podcast, anything like that. And I think you end up being inspired and pulling ideas from all different types of spaces. Walking around in a park, you see the way the tree bark like adds texture, and you can pull that in as a pattern and design. You can find it anywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Paying attention, I think, is something that a designer's eye is really good at, right? Is sort of paying attention and
It's a
then
blessing and a curse. It's, you look at every sign and you see like that's spaced wrong.
yes. Yeah, exactly. Um, has your past in theater come into play in an unexpected way?
Oh goodness, yes, so much. I actually, funny enough, really unexpected and probably totally irrelevant to this conversation, but we had some furniture delivered that came on this huge like wood structure that they just left in our atrium, that I actually brought out the saw and brought out the hammer. I felt like I was taking down sets.
Oh, nice.
I broke it down and created, put a bunch of plywood out for scraps, and yeah, that was a very surprising use, but it really made me think of Stevens. Like, oh man, I could be taking down sets right now.
I know I love working with power tools for sure, and
Yeah.
reminds me of my sculpture days for sure. And I think that that is something that is inherently, I don't want to say missing. It is something that faculty often tell students is take a class if you can outside of your major, or do something that you just want to learn a little bit more about, because it adds to your creative process. It can add to your overarching, you can be so inspired, and it sort of creates this overarching way of seeing and way of showing up. I think that can be really beneficial.
And art intersects with everything. It's, again, the design series. This first one was designed for sports, but we're doing design for beer next. And then we have design for the public sector. It really does intersect with so many different things, and you never know. There's so many jobs out there in design that you don't talk about in a design program at a university.
Mhm.
Not to any fault of anyone. It's just sometimes they're just created that no one even, somebody had a skill set, so they created the position. So
Right.
I think doing those kind of classes, it also helps you find, maybe at some point design doesn't become your passion anymore, and you need a different outlet. I never would have, I didn't study design at school. I studied theater, but luckily I found something. I'd taken some art classes, or I knew that existed, and I could move into that and find another passion. So I absolutely echo that sentiment. Always be learning, and always learn things outside of your normal day to day, because you'll find a lot of really cool inspiration and or potential opportunities for different parts of your life.
And it might open you up to, wow, I'm really good at this thing. How can I incorporate it into my creative process? Or maybe you find a different path, right? And so it's always important to put yourself in new positions. Cordelia asks, do you still pursue acting? A lot of questions about your acting, which is fun. While doing graphic design, or do you still do it as a hobby? And so if so, how do you continue both things and keeping them in balance? So I feel like we've talked a little bit about this, but Do you sort of seek out, just to sort of scratch that itch, and not just when people drop off furniture at your place, but maybe kind of seeking out those opportunities that you really once loved?
Yeah, I haven't completely put it away. I haven't done a lot of work. I did audition for, it was a 24-hour play festival that I thought was a really easy, quick commitment to do. It's something, running my own business, it's something I don't have time to do, to do an entire show, run rehearsals and 6 weeks of performances and stuff like that. But yeah, I haven't put it to bed. I haven't given up on it totally. It's finding the right opportunity, finding the right time, to scratch that itch.
Nice, nice. Layla says, I've noticed some designers become obsessed with their craft. Would you say that you've incorporated design into more of your life as you have pursued your career?
No.
It's just, no. Okay. It's
It's
just,
hard. I mean, there are people that are way more right brain, way more left brain, and can really go down that. And I have designer friends that is everything, that's what they do. I am a sponge. There's so many things I like. I love just learning all the different things. So I don't. I do design for my work and I enjoy it. I'm grateful that I get to enjoy most parts of my work. But then at the end of the day, I'm doing something else.
the faucet that you just maybe turn on and off, maybe, or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's a very skilled, I can tell a little bit about your theater background, because that's very skilled in the sense that you have a play that you're working on or a musical that you're working on, and it's very emotional. And how do you sort of keep showing up day after day? I love theater, so we'll have to have maybe a side conversation about that. But yeah, and just how if you have your emotional tap, you're sort of an filled sponge, right? You're just sort of, but it's a really great skill to be able to turn that off, I think, for sure.
And it's also, if you end up, again, I still would recommend, start an agency or start in-house, learn from other people that are doing it instead of being out on your own. Being out on your own and having to learn it is so much harder. But running a business, you have to learn so many other things. I can't design all day. I wish that all 8 hours of my day, and it's not really 8 hours, it's longer, but is just me sitting on InDesign or Illustrator designing, but it is sending invoices, it is sending emails to tell people they haven't paid yet and they need to. It's setting up 401ks. I mean, all of these logistical things that go into running a business means that I already have to break up my time so much. So even if I wanted to, if you're thinking of running your own agency or running a business, even if you wanted to just tap into design in every part of your life, don't run a business or get a business partner that's going to handle all the operational stuff, because you're just going to split time anyway.
Sure. Yeah, wearing a lot of different hats, but I'm sure that Stephen's being involved in so many things and saying yes to any opportunity, that kind of can prepare you to wear a lot of different hats at one time. Okay, let's see. The next question is, what what is some advice you could give to someone who is struggling with a path that is creative? There are many directions and it's difficult and kind of overwhelming battle that can of uncertainty, essentially. I've definitely felt that in my life, but I think teaching has been sort of my North Star. I've always known that I enjoyed that at different capacities. But did you have something that, what advice would you give to someone who's struggling with a path for being creative?
Well, I mean, I'm living proof. Just do the first thing. And then when you're ready, do the next thing. It can be totally different. And then if you want to change it again, change it again. I mean, my parents' generation, yeah, they worked in the same job for 30 years, 40 years. My generation, we at least try to stick around for 5 to 10 years. I don't think that's even normal anymore, right? So don't feel like you're gonna make a decision and you're stuck with that for the rest of your life. You are 100% not. And I still have to remind myself of that. Like, just do it. Just jump in and try it, because if you hate it, just change it. There's so many opportunities now, and it's so much easier to find those opportunities. That you stop putting the pressure on yourself that the decision that you make right now is gonna be stuck with you forever and ever. It's gonna be something that you experience, that you learn from, that you love it or you hate it, but you're gonna learn from it, and it's gonna carry into the next thing you do, and you're gonna enjoy that even more because you'll have learned the lessons from the previous thing that you did.
And the world has sort of opened up, I think, for designers in particular or creatives, because we can live anywhere, we can do work remotely. You, like you mentioned, are in Arizona right now. You're missing our wonderful weather in Missouri, by the way. We talked about that last time, but yeah, it's something that I think you saying yes doesn't pigeonhole you for even 5-10 years, right? It can be 5-10 minutes. Maybe not that short, but definitely, trying something on and figuring out, hey, what do I like about this? What don't I like? Is there something that I really love about this job? And I'm going to advocate for myself to where if anyone needs photography, they know that I'm going to raise my hand. Sort of knowing what you are good at and what you're interested in, I think can really help.
I want to say one more thing too, that I want to say it with caution, because I think when you hear it when you're really young, it potentially it can be the wrong thing. But I also think it's helpful if you can contextualize it. If that is business, it's really, especially for women, when you work for a company, it's a business relationship. Whether they might say we're a family, and they might give great perks and everything, but at the end of the day, if they're downsizing because their products aren't selling, they might like you as a person, but they're going to let you go, right? And you have to have that mindset as an individual as well. If it's not right for you, if it's not a healthy situation, certainly, but if it's not a situation where you feel like you can continue to grow, you've maxed out, they're not giving you opportunities, you have to be okay saying, I like you as a person, but this is not the right place for me. And it's okay to leave that as well. I think hopefully this is shifting, but I've noticed women especially, we're givers. We want to provide and do good and be a great employee and be really supportive, but sometimes those environments are just not the right environment anymore. And you have to be okay with shifting to something different and walking away from that. So again, I wouldn't use that as like, oh, they're not giving me a corner office. I've been here a whole year. Like, I should leave. There's some learning that you still want to do and that you want to stick around long enough to make sure you're learning those lessons. But don't be afraid to walk away from something that's comfortable and try something that's might be a risk, but that you could potentially have more growth in.
Thank you for saying that. I think that is inherently something that women can get caught up in for sure. If they feel safe enough to venture out and you just think that an opportunity is not for you, you start noticing how people are showing up or not showing up and in a business. And when people show you who they are and you have fundamental differences, it is important to advocate for yourself and figure out that that's not something that you want to tolerate, or maybe not something as detrimental as that, but something that, wow, I'm not given the opportunities that I was either promised, or I'm not growing here. And like you mentioned, not necessarily an office or perks in that way, but just I'm not able to really showcase my skills, learn from people, collaborate in the way that I want to. Those are really important things that I think if you're not getting from a position and that was your goal, then maybe, share that with your employer, or you can just move on. So yeah, I advocate for, that sounds like we advocate for quitting, but I do. I think that you just sort of know, you need to know when to move on to something else and be a champion for yourself. We have a question from Alana, who is, she's an equestrian major here as well, as comm design. So she says, how do you continue to find skill building opportunities in your professional life?
Oh my God, they're everywhere. Even more so than when I was younger. I mean, everything online. There's in my bio, I talked about the design association. Finding almost every industry has an association, and they're typically membership based. But they, even if you can't join, if there's a financial barrier, there are resources there. There are mentors. There are people that you can reach out to that will just have a conversation with you. They're great places to find those opportunities. But at the internet, I mean, and anything you're looking for now you can find. So if you're a curious person, you'll have no trouble continuing that part of your life, finding new things to learn and new ways to learn them.
Mm-hmm. Daniela mentioned burnout. She said, Jennifer, you talked about burnout earlier. What are you doing to build your energy back up? And what advice would you give students to sort of combat that? Students often, they're taking a lot of design courses, or even if they take something else that kind of pulls on their creative strings in a different way, that's still focusing on your creative process. So do you ever have burnout, and what do you do to sort of rebuild that energy?
There are certainly, I would say, different levels. I mean, burnout, full burnout. I didn't even realize this until I got there. It's about a 6 month to 1 year turnaround. They've found, like studies, that's what data is showing. It takes 6 months to a year to actually come back to a place where you feel, I don't know if normal is the right word, but your own normal, right? You feel like you're back into being motivated and driven. And so luckily I won't, I'm not 100% back, but I don't think it's going to take me a year to get there. I've gotten pretty far in a few months, but it definitely took some time. So it is sometimes a matter of really walking away. If it gets to that point, you turn it off, you turn the spigot off, and you take the time, which is what I had to do. Hopefully Stevens is not giving you that much coursework that you get to the point where you need to leave school and take a break. That for sure can happen for students, but I think the idea is just make sure that you're using your time management. Make sure that you're taking the time, you're getting your schoolwork done during the week so that you have the weekends to do something totally different. I struggled with that. I was working all weekend because I always felt behind, right? So now, excuse me, Friday comes around, the phone goes away. I don't keep certain apps on the phone that I use on the weekends because I don't want to be pulled back into that. I use the weekends to find an activity that's going to refresh me, that's going to make me not use those same neurons that stress me out about work. And so I would say just really try to figure that out. Try and stay on top of things during the week so that you have those 2 days on the weekend to do something different to refresh, even if it's just sleep. Sometimes it's just sleep, right? That would be my biggest piece of advice, to just find those times where you can do something that's different and not overwhelm yourself.
Disengaging helps you in the future be more engaged. Turning it off and being able, that's why I mentioned that's such a fundamental skill. I think that it sounds like it's not just in a theater background, but you can, people in other disciplines, they learn that when they're at work, they can show up for themselves at work, but they do have to have some of those other interests as well. So
it's so much harder with technology because there's now an expectation that someone can reach you at any hour of any day. And so you have to be proactive about turning those things off. I love some of the technology tools the iPhone has with Focus. You can turn certain notifications off. It makes such a difference. So I recommend looking at that kind of thing too, that you don't need to have a little, a bright red dot to remind you that there's somebody waiting for you to respond, right?
Yeah.
It's not that important. It really isn't.
Yeah, providing boundaries, I think, for yourself and sticking to those, that's really important. especially when you don't have maybe a culture and you work from home or you have your own business and you're creating the culture. It's really important to sort of to model that and to say, I understand you have a life. And I remember early on in my career saying yes to everything, which is a good thing, right? But you're also, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And when you're doing that, you're trying to figure out what your priorities are. You're trying to figure out what's important to you. And so with anybody that is, near to graduation, saying yes, but also providing that boundary, I think is an interesting thing. We have about 5 minutes left. If somebody else wants to ask a question, you can, but I like to end these talks with sort of what you mentioned that you do, where you were talking about everybody coming to the table with an idea or something that is exciting to them. Right now, and maybe you would appreciate this, I am very much into film. That's something that how I turn off my brain into something different. It's still visual art, right? But it's something that is in a different capacity. And so my current obsession that I would love to share with everybody, so I'm interested in yours, is the actor Carrie Coon. I'm just obsessed with anything that she does. And do you know her work at all? She was in
Probably, but
Chicago
the
in the
name doesn't ring a
Steppenwolf
bell.
Theater. She did plays there. She was in a lot of different media, but right now she's somebody who I'm just really trying to fit into every conversation like this one. So is there something right now that's just sort of making you happy, or that you and it doesn't have to be necessarily something that is to do with visual art or visual design, or theater for that matter, but I just thought I would share.
So I do, and it's actually music. I am very, music really has an effect on my mood and my motivation and everything. And I'm amazed that more people haven't heard of her. Marion Hill is a musician who brings in this great beat underneath. It's the music is kind of soulful and jazzy, and then there's this great beat to it. And this combination, I feel like it's kind of original. It's certainly not something that I hear in mainstream music a lot. And you can't help, it's what I love about learning Spanish and about Latin culture, like music, and they love to dance and move. And you can't listen to Marion Hill and sit still. It's just like your body wants to move. Maybe that's because I was a dancer, but my body just wants to move. So check out Marion Hill. I think some of the song Got It is one of her main songs. Whiskey is another song. She just makes me so happy every time I hear anything from her.
Yeah. So do you listen to music while you're creating work then, or?
100%. Yeah. I get really bored if I don't. It's kind of weird, but, and I need to change it up. I can't listen to the same playlist 2 days in a row, even genres. If I do classic rock one day, I have to do classical the next day and pop the next day.
Yeah, sort of regimented there in that way. All right.
Yeah.
Let me check the chat to see if we have any other questions, but this has just been so fun, Jennifer. Thank you for agreeing to do this. And I know that you are very active as an alumni here at Stevens, and we thank you for your support and your contribution, and for this contribution as well. So it looks like I think I covered everything that people asked. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover or talk about?
Our internship program is on pause this semester, next semester, but I think by the fall we'll start to build that back. It's been one of my favorite things about, it's what I miss the most about having wound things down a little bit. I love working with young designers. I think it's so frustrating. It's more frustrating for you guys, I'm sure, but frustrating for me to hear that internships and companies are expecting, years of experience for these roles. I think it's silly. I think we try to give all of our interns direct client work. It may never go to the client, but you get to experience working through that process and working on creative projects for clients. I know that Creative Inc., you guys get to do that some already, but I think having that opportunity is really invaluable, obviously helping build your portfolio. So reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to, send me a note, ask me questions. ask if our internship is, applications are open, whatever. I love connecting with young people, and I love, being a mentor and or, giving opportunities when I can, for sure.
That's amazing and generous. Thank you so much for that. We'll be in touch. And again, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining. And we will see you next time.